Well, tell me about, yeah, I mean, obviously I've looked into your work. It's incredibly impressive. I mean, aside from being a lawyer, you're one of the top, foremost, preeminent communications experts right now, I would say globally, and everybody's super excited for your book. But yeah, walk us through your background.
Yeah, so I am an attorney. I am a fifth generation attorney, actually. I'm the oldest of four, so I was an old soul to begin with. I mean, I was bred, I think, to just talk a lot, and the way my life has turned out to be, I've learned a lot about communication, just innately. It's a gift that I believe my parents prayed for, and over time, I just kind of became. I was always the dad of my friend group. Went to college, went to law school, and I started a law firm. I was at a big defense firm for about 12 years, a partner there, and I decided to leave and start my own. And right about that time, I thought I'd go into social media. And so I started on that side of kind of selling what I did, telling people I did personal injury law, I'm an attorney, hire me. And then I was like, this doesn't feel right. And what if I can just make social media to provide value for free, just to help them? And what do I know more than anybody I feel that I know? And it was communication. And I started with my first how to communicate like a lawyer video. And before I knew it, it just started to take off. And it was just a passion. It's like I've always had these things inside of me of how I communicate and how I train my clients before depositions, cross-examinations, trials. And I thought, well, what if I can just kind of break down step by step what I teach them? And it's taken off from there. And here I am.
So what was your first video that was like the turning point for you? How to communicate like a lawyer?
Yeah, that was kind of my first video that was a value one where I wanted to help people. And I made it about, the points were, I think, one, don't get defensive, because as soon as you do, you're telling the other person you're losing the argument. And second was, don't get personal. When you throw personal attacks, it's you're now resorting to low-hanging fruit. In other words, you have nothing left. You don't have any actual substance in the argument. Instead, you're just trying to hurt. And then be careful about, I think it was cussing too much. It was like over-seasoning your food. After a while, you lose the flavor.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And I think at the time, nobody was making videos in their car. And mine was really out of necessity, because I had just left I had like a corner office, 3 paralegals, everything's great. And then I chose to start off, and I was just by myself. So I thought, well, no excuse here. I'll just do it in my car, and I stuck with it.
Wow. Yeah, a lot of your videos you record in your car.
Almost all of them. I mean, and we have offices now. I have 2 locations. It's great, but the car is the safe space.
Are you still practicing law, or
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. At what point, though, did you make the leap, at least in your own head, from, being an attorney to venturing into the arena of personal development, self-help?
I mean, you're witnessing it. I'm still trying to take the leap. I have a hard time pulling out of that, because there's a part of me that goes, no, I still need to continue to attend depositions, mediations, and have these cases, because it shows more credibility to the advice that I give, that I am a trial attorney. I think people are more forgiving than that, and probably more understanding of where I'm at in this position. But I'm slowly trying to find a good path of how I'm going to balance all of that. I never ever thought it would ever be what it is in a million years. I mean, every day is I cannot believe that I'm here. If they knew where I make these videos, I mean, I might make them in a Waffle House parking lot. I mean, it's just wherever I'm at and wherever it comes to me. So I don't batch any of my content. I make it and then I post it every day.
What would you say are the biggest mistakes that people make when communicating with others? Biggest mistakes that people make in interpersonal communication?
They're communicating to win, not communicating to understand. Too often they feel like if they have a point that they want to make, then you have to understand that point. You have to take and adopt that point, not tomorrow, now. And there's this urge of control of, I need you to lose to me. I need to win the argument. When really conversations, especially the difficult conversations and arguments, there's something to unravel, to find the knot in the heart of the matter, rather than finding that everything about it is conflicting. Because as soon as you win an argument, you lose a lot more. I mean, you lose your credibility, you lose that connection, that relationship. If you and I are in a bad argument and I throw that cutting word at you so I can win just for that moment, well, I mean, what'd I do? You won. Congratulations. I've now won awkward silence. I've now won contempt. We still have to probably communicate with that person in some way. You have to work with them, live with them. And that feeling of, oh, I finally gave that good zinger, it lasts 10 seconds. The next day you're going, why did I say that? That was such a, and now you regret. Now you have to apologize. And so that win you thought you wanted isn't what you needed after all.
You're so right. One of my favorite videos of yours, you share with people how to best apologize, which sounds like it would be so self-explanatory, something just like hardwired into, our psyche, but there's actually like a method to it. So how do we best apologize?
Well, it's more difficult than you think to do it in the moment. That's the hard part. And I break it down really into 3 bite-sized steps that anybody can implement. And one is, it's the apology. This is the easier part of, I'm sorry, I apologize. It's as simple as that. 2, it is telling them how they feel is reasonable and justified. For example, let's say the first part is, hey, I'm sorry that I said that. Second part is, I understand how that could be upsetting, or you're right to be upset by that. You're acknowledging how they're feeling, because that's really the key, is you have to kind of agree and acknowledge of, hey, how you feel is absolutely okay. It's not can you just get over this? It's the acknowledgement part. And last, third, is showing some kind of future step. In other words, you're showing that, hey, we're going to switch this in the future. And it might be that I understand now that this is important to you, or I'm going to make sure I don't bring up this topic again, or in the future, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. That's the only way you learn, because there's always those people, Max, that when you apologize and they apologize to you, they're going to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they don't really mean it. But when you have some kind of future plan of action, it's showing that there's kind of a completion of the circle.
Yeah, and also I love how you break it down where, it's important to apologize by saying I'm sorry as opposed to I'm sorry you, or I'm sorry that. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, or I'm sorry if. So a lot of the times they have people that I'm sorry if that upset you. To that you respond, it's not if, it's that. It's a lot of the times they want to make it conditional. I'm sorry if I hurt you, as if they don't know that it did. Or I'm sorry that that's a terrible way to apologize. Is if you always say, I'm sorry that you were offended, don't apologize for their feelings, apologize for what you did, apologize for what you said. So it's always, I'm sorry that that's taking that extra step of accountability.
What is it about your background as a lawyer that has given you such a unique skill set?
It's a little bit of mix of my own personality and law. Like law school teaches you how to read the law. It doesn't teach you how to read people. And so I think some of that is just a natural inclination of my own personality. If I were to say what trial experience does as an attorney, meaning you're dealing with litigation, parties, courtrooms, hearings, is that it allows you to see the conflict. It's very easy to kind of, instead of being right up in it, it's that power of detachment of I can see the communication happening while I'm talking to that person as if I'm watching it from a movie. And having that wherewithal helps you go, no, this is how I need to tweak this. This is how I need to prepare this. Because when you're dealing with that difficult witness on the stand and you have 12 jurors who are watching a judge, a bailiff, and court reporter, you're not just thinking of your next sentence. You have to think of how it looks in the entire picture. What's it going to make not just that person feel as you would in regular communication. It's all the more important that it's how the others are going to feel about that interaction. So that's where it comes into this power of seeing it from a third person point of view.
So how should we seek to make others feel about us when communicating? Is it all about just garnering likeness? Or like how should we approach each interaction? Like, is it we want this person to like us. We want this person to respect us. I mean, maybe there are some people out there that appreciate being feared by others, which I think sounds actually quite pathologic.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what should be the goal of, I mean, I guess it might differ context, in different contexts, but like, yeah, what is the goal of like a healthy communication style?
Any healthy communication style is one where everybody is, for the most part, a balance. So there's not too much pressure from you and not too much pressure from me. It's not that you want everybody to like you. Now, that's an innate thing, I think, within all of us. Like when you meet somebody new, meeting you for the first time today, there's always an intrinsic part of me is I want this person to like me, vice versa. And how you communicate, to me, the only way to do that is to be as authentic as possible. When somebody is trying to be somebody they're not, we sense it. Like when somebody's on the stand, the jurors have a sixth sense of if that person's being genuine or not. You can see that on social media. Somebody does a post and you go, there's something about this that feels off. It feels fake. They feel like they're trying to gain maybe sympathy, or maybe somebody is faking an emotion. Anytime you try to pour icing too much on somebody, if all I did was just compliment how great you were and how wonderful you are, sounds good for a second, but then you go, that's the more you say, the less I believe.
Yeah.
And there's this element of, something about this is a facade, a surface of some sort. And what I teach and what I outline in the book is when you want to communicate truly, it's all about path of connection. Instead of always seeing things as a conflict, it's a way to connect to somebody. And you do that by, one, saying things with control. I mean, you're controlling your not just your own body, but acknowledging and being able to recognize the symptoms in other people. Two is to say things with confidence, to be able to assert yourself in ways that you can speak your needs more directly. Because I think that's a crucial element of real communication, is when you are having that heart-to-heart, when I can share that and say things to you directly without feeling rude or that I'm taking advantage of you or manipulating the situation. And lastly, you say it to connect, meaning you handle that difficult conversation with one that you feel like you really stood your ground on, or you feel like you represented yourself, rather than feeling like you always regretted that conversation. Because we've all had those difficult ones where after you got done, you go, God, that went terrible. Or I don't feel like I represented myself well. And that's, I think that's the way that you try to handle almost any conversation you can.
Yeah. And it speaks so much, I think, to the times that we live in where, we're seeing now that long form conversations by way of podcasting has really supplanted in many ways legacy media, the media of the past, couple of decades, century almost, where the communication style was inherently inauthentic, local news reporters. I mean, they speak a certain way, and the way that they speak, right, is not how any other normal human being speaks.
It's not even how they speak.
It's not even how they speak. Yeah, exactly.
I think you're right. I believe that when COVID hit, it changed a lot because you saw people for who they were. You saw people just posting from their phone, hair all messed up, just rolled out of bed. Messy bun, the whole thing. They're just real. And slowly, I think we're transitioning more to wanting to see the real, not the polish, not the fake, the facade. They truly want to feel that. I mean, a lot of your most followed creators that are not celebrities, they don't have, if you see ones of somebody putting on their makeup, right? I mean, that's what a lot of women do, and it's real. Or guys that are just getting done with some kind of workout, or they're talking about kid stuff. It's people are looking for the real. Same in communication. They just want the real.
What about for people who struggle to find their authentic voice?
Yeah. You find that when people are having a hard time of just being who they are, I just want to represent themselves, or you feel like they're having to be somebody that they're not?
Well, I feel like, in my own personal life, I have friends that run the gamut on the spectrum of self-awareness.
Yeah.
I have some friends. I personally, I would consider myself very self-aware.
Yeah.
Whereas I have other friends that seem to lack a degree of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of, they seem very tethered to like rote behaviors, they don't seem to update their like preferences very regularly. Yeah, there just seems to be like a lack of self-awareness, and I feel like there's like a in between, you know, the external observer and who they might actually really be. Inside, there seems to be, I guess, what's sometimes referred to as like a block. You know?
I think that people are born with a certain default of emotional awareness. My son is incredibly empathetic. I mean, he's kind of like me. If there's a movie and there's a sad part, we're both crying. I mean, we're just extremely sensitive to other emotions. If something's happening, he's thinking of, well, how's that going to affect his sister? Now, his younger sister, who's a year and a half younger, she could care less about your emotions. She's not once thinking about how anything's going to affect you. It's kind of that, here's a good way of thinking it. Here in LA, traffic's a little bit different, but in Texas, like if you're driving in the left lane, where you're supposed to go fast, and people are backing up behind you, like me, oh my gosh, I'm definitely going to move in the right lane. I'm like, I'm so sorry, let me get out. I feel that for you. I've also been in the cars with friends where it didn't bother them at all.
That's such a great example.
Or you're passing people and they're just driving in the left lane. They have the whole entire right lane. They could drive, but they're not. And they're just never going to think about it. And it's not their fault. It's just they don't have a higher level default of emotional. It's not intentional. They just don't have it. And so it is like how everybody has different skill sets. Like you don't want me doing your electrical work. You don't want me building your birdhouse. But there are other people who are very skilled at that. And so we'll all have just different defaults, kind of like a soundboard in a studio. And I think that somebody, like in my world, and just in yours, I feel like I have more emotional awareness. Others do not. That doesn't mean it can't be learned. I think the first step to learning is understanding that there's a level of curiosity you may not be looking for or that you haven't asked for. To start there. But yes, to me, it's the left hand lane drivers. I can't stand it. I'm like, how could you not? I guess I'll go to the right lane and move around you.
Oh my God, it's such a good, fantastic example of a complete lack of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
It's also like the person who's on the piece of gym equipment that you're kind of like hovering around, and they're like sitting there on their phones,
never gonna look up.
Exactly.
But I'd feel that. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me get up and let me wipe this off for you. Like I can't.
Amen.
Yeah, I just can't do that.
It's the most frustrating thing ever.
Yeah.
So how do we is there a way to cultivate greater emotional intelligence, or is it hardwired? Is it innate?
I think a lot of it is hardwired. That's your default system, and the only way to work out anything is to use it more. So if curiosity is a powerful stimulus to where you can start wondering, well, how would they be feeling? How could I be doing that? It's asking those external questions of the world around you. How do you force somebody to do that? Who knows? But what it does is inform you of when I'm communicating with somebody, they may not have the emotional awareness, or you want to call it emotional intelligence, to feel the same things that we do. Or there's people who are, let's say, neurodivergent. There are people who they're never going to feel the emotions like you do. So you have to communicate in a certain way. All that means is there's nothing wrong with that person. It just means you need to adapt your style of how you're communicating. You have to say things to connect rather than how to realize how dare you, instead of taking this mindset of how dare you not understand how I feel and getting kind of all in your own feels about it, but instead of adapting your communication.
Very interesting. I'm curious, have you ever studied like improv comedy? And
I haven't studied it, but I love it.
You love it.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, they're talented, especially the people who can do crowd work. I mean, it's such a skill to be able to think that quickly and land it. But yeah, I love comedy.
Is there a way? Well, I'm curious to know if there's a way to enhance that to become, you know, somebody who is perceived as being wittier or sharper in that sense, you know?
Yeah. I think that people that are extremely funny are ones that inside, what I know about is that a lot of times inside there's some kind of internal struggle or problem or drama that they've had to survive, and they do that, and not surviving physically, but mentally, emotionally, and they do that by making people laugh, by getting that smile and that laugh. And that it starts probably at a very early age. Like my son loves to tell jokes all the time, and they can be the most made up, crazy joke of, now my daughter does it, like, hey, knock, knock, say who's there, and she'll just be like, cat. Yeah, and she thinks it's hilarious. And of course that makes me laugh, but they understand at a very young age that there are certain things, if they pull on that string, they're going to get that reaction. They want to make you laugh, have a good time, and that gives them satisfaction. I think that the people who are experts at it, they're masters at it. It's so fun to watch because the timing is so impressive. Like the comedic kind of pause of knowing the right way to phrase that one sentence. And it wouldn't have been as funny had they didn't have that pause, if they didn't say it that one way. It's truly an art. If they just come out with the line, it wouldn't have been any big deal, but it's the delivery.
Timing, delivery, all that. I took improv classes a couple years ago at, I want to say it was Groundlings in New York. I could be wrong. It could have been Upright Citizens Brigade. I don't remember. Cool. It was one of them. But basically, one of the core tenets of improv comedy is the yes and. Yeah. Are you familiar with that at all?
I am, yeah. Where it continues to roll the dialogue.
Like you don't want to shut down conversation by using the yes and. You're basically accepting what's presented to you conversationally, and rather than shutting it down with a no, you say, in a way, yes and, to build on what was presented to you.
Yeah, and I love that, not only because it's a great improv exercise, but you can use that even in negotiations and business. If somebody's complaining about the price of something, this is expensive. Yes, and the reason why it's expensive is because there's X, Y, and Z, or yes, it's one of the most exclusive models. You're building on it, instead of if I said, well, I know it's not that expensive. I mean, if you look at, and now they're wanting to, now I'm just showing them disagreeing, and now all they're going to want to do is start to prove that, yes, it is expensive. So the yes and is a much better way of growing. And it's also, it can be applied to a lot of different communication, of taking out the word but. Like in apologies, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't have said that had you not done this. Using the but takes away from everything. Or let's say one of your best friends does something and you go, look, hey, I love you, but you drive me crazy. The but kind of takes away from those feelings. Or if I'm explaining something and I'm saying, I love everything I love this podcast and everything, but now it just kind of it deminimizes what I just said previously. So, but if you say and, it takes it to a whole nother level. It's adding on to that conversation.
Yeah, it's whatever the opposite of entropy is. It's allowing something to like flourish into new possibility.
Yeah, it makes things grow, and that's where you want to take conversation.
Amen.
Yeah.
As a lawyer, I mean, you're probably used to, and a communications expert, you're probably used to people not being very forthcoming with you, being deceptive. Are there ways to tell when somebody is perhaps hiding something or even lying?
Silence and a strategic use of silence. And this is what I mean. When somebody is saying something you believe to be a lie, the best response for them is when you immediately start to take it up and argue with them, because what they're doing is you're allowing them to continue to grapple in, give more facts, and find out, what do you not believe? What can I fix? And continue to put just paint every time you chip it, try and draw you in, make you see this whole picture that they want to paint. But silence, they fill in the gaps by themselves. So for example, I've had it where I'm deposing somebody, and I know I have the evidence of, there was this time this guy was texting while driving. I asked him point blank, I said, were you texting while you're driving that day? No, I never text when I drive. Well, one, he used the word never. It's an extreme. That's a mistake right there. There's no way. Everybody does at some point. But instead of going, are you sure about that? Is that really, sir? Instead of getting up on that, I just let it stop. Give it about 5-7 seconds. And all of a sudden, he kind of just started to twist in his chair a little bit. And I just let him go out on that ledge and let the room be quiet. And what he did was, he was talking to himself in his head. What he's saying is, oh, Jefferson doesn't believe me. He doesn't believe me. What am I going to do? And so what he said was, I mean, I say never. I never, but I mean, I have before, but I wasn't that day. Now it's like, gotcha. Okay, now you're starting to already come back. So all you got to do is just continue to pull on that string. I just gave it about 5 more seconds. It was just nothing. I'm just kind of looking at him. And I said, if you were texting while you're driving that day, it's okay to tell me. So often when you say, it's okay, I'm letting them know, you can come back. You can walk off the ledge. I'm giving you a path here to come on back. Hey, apply that to anything. Hey, if you did take my cookie, it's okay. I mean, you're kind of giving that reassurance of, I'm not going to do anything. Just don't lie to me. And what I did was I had a stack of documents. They were not the cell phone records. Those are in the back. But I just put my hands on the documents. I said, you were texting while you were driving that day. And he goes, yeah, no, I think I was actually that day. And so often people who lie, the best outcome for them is for you to buy into their trap and let them fix it. Because they're wanting to sniff out of, what are you not believing? That's why sometimes when a liar's talking to you, they might say, well, why would I do that? What do you mean? Why would I say that? Why would I do that kind of thing? They're wanting you to respond so they can fix it. Like they can lie again for you to go, well, I didn't you didn't get home until 11. Well, it was because of the traffic. I mean, you know why. And so they're trying to get you to talk more so that they can continue to fix the lie. So it's
very manipulative.
Extremely. So it's kind of like, what's that advice? You feed a fever and you starve a cold. It's kind of like that. You have to, if you want the lie to build, you feed into it. You want it to go away, you got to leave it alone, and it'll live in their head that you're not believing it. It'll eat them.
Damn. What are some other, maybe forms of nonverbal communication that might flag that somebody is being,
dishonest?
Yeah.
If the first thing they ask is an upward question. So if I've had it before where I said, let's just use an example of, now you went to the store that day, and they'd say, I went to the store? As if like it's, what I just said, and you know what store I'm talking about. Why would you do that? They do that often to kind of build a little bit of time in that. So the repeating the question of exactly what you said and doing it in a question form, as if like they're confused by it. Like, hey, who did you eat my last piece of cake? And you're like, cake? It's a cake? What cake? Like that's often it.
It's like that scene in Tommy Boy when that's like I think one of the best cinematic moments when the car is just like the door has been like just completely destroyed when they're pulling up to the gas station or whatever. But Chris Farley like jerry rigs the door so that it looks like it hasn't already been broken off, and then David Spade comes out from he's inside like the quick stop, and he opens the door falls off. Right. Chris Farley looks at him, he's like, what'd you do?
Yeah, exactly. It's a whole lot easier to plead innocence on it when you're like, what car? What car? Like, what are you talking about? So that's typically a giveaway when they repeat it and do it with a question, especially the more basic of a question it is. Like if it's not hard, it's not complex, that's what they're going to do. But it's all in that, what I talk about is saying it with control, is being able to recognize the triggers, including lying from the other person when they're trying not to tell you the whole truth. It's usually because it's a place of protection, deflection, not wanting to upset you, wanting you to still like them in some way.
Yeah. So how do we broach, hot button issues with others and do it in a way that doesn't elicit defensiveness, and to actually, you've already kind of given us some really, I think, wonderful suggestions, like not initiating an interaction with the intent of winning it,
Yeah.
But yeah, how do we, because defensiveness kind of kills all deals, I think.
Oh yeah. The funny thing about defensiveness is it's like locking yourself in your room from your own side of the door and then being mad that they won't get in. Like you still expect the other person to understand you and your emotions, but you've dropped all need to ever want to understand them. So you're protecting your own in that moment. You got your own box and you're saying, this is mine, and you're not touching it. When you have to have that difficult conversation with anybody, what I outline, and this is part of saying it with Connect, is a frame. And Max, a frame is probably one of the most powerful tools that I teach for difficult conversations. What it does is give you a path to connect to the other person before the conversation even starts. So let's say you and I have to have a tough heart-to-heart. I come in the room and I say, hey, you got a moment? Hey, Max, listen. So you remember back like 2 weeks ago, you said that thing in front of our friends. Look, man, I gotta say, and look, we're still, buddies. At the same time, you're going, what are we talking about? Where's this going? What do you mean? And you're getting worked up. You're going to get defensive. Your fight or flight's kicking in because you're going, what fear of the unknown here? It's like that text, we need to talk. Like nobody likes that text. You don't know what you're wanting to talk about. A frame, rid yourself of all that. And here's how to do it. One is you tell the person what you want to talk about. Hey, Max, I'd like to talk about your comments at the meeting last Thursday. Two, you tell them how you want to feel at the end of the conversation. That's the key. You have to tell them how you want to feel at the end of the conversation. That's, I want to walk away from this conversation with X, or at the end of the conversation, I'm wanting to feel Y. So, for example, one is, hey, Max, I want to talk with you about your comments at last Thursday's meeting. And at the end of the conversation, I'm not asking to solve anything. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just want to feel better about our priorities and that we're the same aligned. Or maybe it's even harder of, hey, I want to walk away understanding that you're not going to do that again. Or maybe it's, hey, I'm not saying this for you to fix it. I just need to say it out loud. Does that sound good? Part 3 is getting their confirmation, saying that, will that work? Can we do that? And it's like a hidden contract. It's like an implied contract where they go, okay, yeah, I can do that. Perfect. Now you know exactly what you're talking about. You know how you want to feel at the end of it. You're not asking to fix. You're just wanting to be heard on this. And now you've said, yeah, I can do that. So it's kind of like signing your name to it. And people don't like to break their word when they've given it. So it aligns it. When you have too many issues in a conversation and you want to talk about everything all at once, you're talking about nothing. Instead, you just need to focus on one issue, one at a time. That's going to allow you to have a much deeper conversation and feel more productive afterwards. Same for in the business context.
So you call that framing
the
conversation?
Yeah, just a conversational frame that allows you to zero in on exactly what you're talking about and exactly what to do with it. What happens most often is we start talking, but you don't know how I want to end the conversation, and you don't know when the conversation is done. So it's, what are you looking for? Are you looking for an apology? Are you looking to solve it? Are you looking to fix it? I feel like there are times when the default is somebody's complaining to me, I'm looking to fix it. So I'm looking all around for, okay, you want me to say this? And they go, no, not that. And they keep talking. You go, oh, okay, so you want me to, well, you should do this. And go, no, just listen to me. And I am listening to you. I just don't know what's the point? Where are you wanting to go? That's where it gets to frustration in and out of it, because the anxiety that I might be feeling of, I don't know where you're going with this. I feel like I'm in trouble. Have I done something wrong? If I were to send you randomly, we need to talk, period. Your mind goes to the worst case scenario. Oh my gosh, they're breaking up with me. Oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. What have I done? I mean, it's just that pit in your stomach of something is wrong. That is all your fight or flight saying, something is threatening me, the fear of the unknown, and we are having to prepare our bodies for it. And so it's that's what makes it, your voice gets shaky, or you get all teary-eyed and you get worked up because you don't know where it's going. Frames help that.
Yeah, and I also appreciate that you're literally, like, in so doing, you're illuminating the path to conflict resolution for them. You're like really laying out like how they can make you feel like you're getting what it is that you want. Like you're making that path really clear for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Another way to do this is, let's say I need to have a sensitive conversation with you, or you need to let go an employee or somebody. Let's say we sit in the room and I say, here's the bad scenario. Scenario 1 is you sit down and I say, Max, look, you've been You've been great here. How have you been? You good? The family good? How's your pickleball and your yeah? This weather's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. So listen, Max, right there, right at that moment, things are going south. So, and you're just waiting for the hammer to drop right away. That's bad. That's real bad. It's not going to go well, and it's going to continue to drag on and on. Versus if I brought you in and say, Max, this is going to be a difficult conversation, or if it's as simple as this isn't going to be fun to talk about. I got some bad news. Just simple as that, and then I let you just hang with it for 3 seconds, 2 seconds to kind of ready yourself, and then I deliver that news. Almost every time what you think I'm going to say is better than what you originally thought. We always think worst case scenario, but that's a lot better way to provide what you said, which I love, is a clear path of, let's be honest, let's not be disingenuous. When you have that small talk at the beginning, it's fake. It's just make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable with letting them down.
Well, yeah. I mean, on that point, are you a fan of the compliment sandwich method?
No. I feel like it tastes a little raw. Yeah. Whenever you provide a compliment and then you say your truth and end with a compliment, it has a bad aftertaste. I find that it's much better to lead with the bad news right away and talk about it. And then what you're able to do is begin to, as a healing balm in some way, you are providing maybe that confidence, maybe that compliment to them. So if I need to let go of somebody, I've done it before. I've had to let go of an employee. Say, all right, this isn't going to be fun to talk about. I need to let you go. And they go, okay. And I say, here's what we're running to, but here's the thing. I want to support you wherever you want to go. I think you're a wonderful person. There's the compliments. I think you're going to do a lot of things. It's just not going to be here. And if you need me for a reference, blah, 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 that's where you can use the confidence and the compliments at the end of it, should you need to. But it's never a good feeling when it's at the start, when you're using that small talk of, oh yeah, how your parents? Your parents good? Okay, well, say hi to them for me. So listen, that's when womp. It's all going south. You're just waiting for it. You're making them twist in the wind, and that's not fair. And clarity is kind. Being direct is much kinder.
Clarity is kind.
Yeah.
I had a conflict recently that I want to share with you, and I think I handled it well, but I'm not going to share how I handled it.
Okay.
I want to hear how you would handle it, and then see how how closely that aligns with what I actually did.
I like it.
So I live in Los Angeles in a very densely populated area, and my bedroom is very close to the street, and there I guess I have a neighbor that drives and parks on the street. He drives like a Mustang, like this red Mustang with like what has to be like a massive V8 engine.
Yeah.
And this person, not only do they insist on parking, or maybe they just like happen to live right next to me, but they park oftentimes right outside of my house. And my bedroom is like right there, like right off the street. And this person seems to have a job where every single morning at 5:30 in the morning, he's turning on his car and going to work. He could be like a personal trainer. I don't know. I try not to judge. I mean, this guy's hustling clearly. Every single morning at 5:30 in the morning, this guy's turning on his engine to go to work. And it's a big ass engine. Most days it wakes me up at 5:30 in the morning. There hasn't been a single night when this guy's parked, even like 2 houses, I still hear it. And it was driving me nuts. Because sleep is incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I'm generally a good sleeper, but every single morning, 5:30 morning, I'm waking up because this guy's turning on his freaking engine. No. And in my head, I was like starting to write this narrative, like, I hate this fucking guy.
Yeah. You hate him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it could be like a blessing of an alarm clock. You know what I mean? Like if it had not been for his red Mustang, you wouldn't have been ready for your day. Man.
Yeah,
that's what.
Fair enough. Fair.
Yeah, and did you talk to him?
So what I did was I wrote a note, and I left it on his windshield, and I wrote a very polite note, and the note was something like, "Hey, hey neighbor, I hope this note finds you well.
Yeah. I hate you.
Yeah. I noticed that you often, park outside of my house, and I didn't put my name, but I put my address. And your car it's a beautiful car, but on startup, it without fail, I mean, it wakes me up every day at 5:30 in the morning. I mean, like clockwork, this guy is like turning on his car at 5:30, so it's clearly for a job.
Yeah.
And I was like, if it's no stress to you, I really value uninterrupted sleep. I'd be very grateful if you might consider if it's convenient to park a little further down the street.
Yeah.
All the best. And then I just signed off, your neighbor. And but that was just like,
you didn't use somebody else's name, like your other neighbor.
Because I feel like it's like too much information. Like I gave my general address.
Yeah.
But,
I don't blame you. And did you have any results?
I think possibly yes. I think he's been parking a little bit further down the street. Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, but I threw in a compliment. I was like, it's a very nice car.
For sure, you got to compliment the car.
You got to compliment the car. Very nice red Mustang.
Yeah.
And I was very polite. In my head, I'd written this narrative like, I hate this MFer.
Right.
But I don't know anything about him, and like the reality is, I respect him. Like I don't have to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. It's probably a hard life.
Right. I mean, do you know what this person looks like?
I have no idea.
Yeah. See, it could have been a woman. It
could have been a woman.
It could be a 60-year-old lady. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
Here's what comes to mind. Not at all criticizing what you did. I mean, if it sounds like it works, it works. My thoughts are, one, if you have the way to communicate with them in person anytime you can, it's better. Usually notes on the windshield are complaints. Like it's somebody parking too close. It's somebody who, and that's when you leave a note on their windshields. Typically notes are passive rather than being super upfront. It's a comfort thing. Next would be using the I know, and meaning you are giving qualities that you intrinsically believe that they have. So I know by the timing of the sound of your car, you're a hard worker. Not just I like your car, but you're saying something intrinsic about them. I know you're a hard worker.
Specific.
And you're extremely disciplined in your job or your profession, or you take it very seriously. I also take my job seriously as well. And to do it, I need to have a lot of sleep. I know you don't mean to. I know that is certainly not your intention. You have a beautiful car. Could you do me a favor and park a little bit further down the road or wherever? I mean, I don't know if they have to park right there or if you have a garage. I don't know. But that would be my approach. Is I'd love to be able to talk to you about this. Love to have the chance. Like if you've never seen them before and you don't have a chance to interact with them, I'd offer that in the note. We'll love to say hello and meet you in person.
That would be smart, yeah.
And then that way you could find out if it was really, because in your head you think, okay, red Mustang, it's got to be some meathead person that I hate, has a gold chain and probably, eats beef jerky. And so, versus somebody who it could be, it could be a surgeon who wakes up and saving millions of lives every day.
Oh my God,
so
right.
It's having to like that getting out of our own system.
Yeah.
But the I know helps a lot, because like if I'm having a difficult conversation to somebody, say, look, I know that you value transparency and I'm here because of that. So thank you for allowing me to say this to you. Or I know that you value honesty. And all of a sudden they think in their head, oh, I am pretty honest. Or, hey, I know you like to keep things open-minded. They say, oh, well, yes, in their head, they're going, yes, I am. Yes, I am open-minded. And they kind of want to rise up and take on the quality that you gave them.
Yeah, it sounds like you're trying to elicit empathy as opposed to, I mean, that feels like a very fine line to walk,
it is.
Between defensiveness and empathy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's for sure, it's a very fine line, because you don't want to give too much of yourself and weaken your position. At the same time, you don't want to come on too strong and weaken your credibility. So it's harder when you don't know what the person looks like. It's harder when you haven't seen them in person. But I know is a great way of priming a conversation. with someone.
Can that be perceived though as condescending or presumptuous? Like, I don't really know anything about the guy. He could,
Yeah, well, I
might
mean,
not
you
even
do
be a
know.
guy.
I mean, what you do know is they wake up and leave the house at 5:30. What you do know is that is a very disciplined, consistent routine. You do know that they take that very seriously. You don't have to know any more than that. I mean, that alone is something worth considering. I don't think it's manipulative. I don't think it's trying to take advantage of anything. It's simply, here are the clues of what I do know. I don't know what you look like. I don't know what you do. Here's what I do know. You take your alarm clock very seriously, and you're very consistent about it. So using that as a baseline of would love to get to know you more is a great way of opening it up, rather than if you wrote that note and go, hey, your car wakes me up. How about you move it down the road, buddy? That's not gonna. They're not gonna do you any favors.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Before I wrote the note, I mean, for weeks I'd been thinking about, alternatives that were way worse. Toilet papering the guy's car, throwing eggs at it.
Yeah.
I never did any of that, of course. But yeah, this is all super, super important and valuable advice.
Yeah, it's funny.
Shifting gears a little bit, no pun intended. How do you handle? What's the best way to handle trolls on social media?
Well, there's 2 points of view on that. Nobody's asked me that before. One point is you have to allow them to have the opinion, even if you disagree with it, and understand that when they leave a comment, the algorithm doesn't care. It could be good or bad. There are videos that go huge viral, and they're terrible comments. So what's your goal? Is your goal for maximum amount of people to get it? Fine. Otherwise, my advice is just block those people.
That's good advice.
I mean, it's my platform. It's not yours. Go follow somebody else. I mean, it's as simple as that. But what you can't do is say, all right, I have 100 comments, but one person said something negative. You can't allow that one to outweigh the positive of the others, the other 99. And that's what happens is all of a sudden I'm giving that one review, like on my book, for example. My book will be out in March, and there's already, I think, like one review on Amazon. It's a fake review. They haven't seen my book, but yet it's a negative review. And I was like, I need to go and report this. The book's not even out. How could they do this? They're lying. And I was like, what does it matter? Just let that go. Thankfully, I don't really have trolls on my social media, my daily videos. I just have a wonderful, wonderful community of people. But every once in a while, I've had one, and it's just it could be a bot for all, it's really the people who are for you will always support you, but the people who are against you will just be against you.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it's not an issue, but sometimes your content, I'm sure you've experienced. I mean, you've got a massive, social media footprints. Like sometimes your content reaches the audience that you didn't intend for it to reach.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, there's people that are very outspoken in their different opinions and their disagreement, and that's not a bad thing. It's just if you get to where you're obsessing over the negative comments, that's unhealthy. You have to be able to take a little bit of it, and sometimes there's truth in the criticism. Sometimes it's the other person just wants to feel heard, so they need to say it.
That aspect of human nature, though, it's so annoying that we tend to perseverate on the one negative. You could have 100 positive reviews, but it's that one negative review that keeps you up at night.
Yeah, I think it's because it feeds those hidden insecurities. That's what happens. It feeds those hidden insecurities that you think you don't have, but yet when you're not thinking about it, maybe it's just in the back of your mind, that imposter syndrome that I really am. I'm not who I say I am. Maybe I really am an idiot. Maybe I am, making it all up. Maybe I don't know anything. Maybe I am a imposter. I mean, that's the voice that you're feeding. So it goes into this, who are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Are you listening to the people that want to feed into you? Are you listening to the people who want to just for whatever reason, leave some terrible comment just because. Is that who you're going to listen to? Is that who you want to take advice from?
Yeah, well, it hits that nerve that's exposed for all of us.
Yeah.
You know?
Am I enough? Am I really who I say and feel that I am? Yeah, I think everybody, that's a hard-hitting question that everybody reflects on.
Well, so many people are eagerly anticipating the next conversation. I mean, I'm so excited.
Thanks, man.
For it. Yeah. Who'd you write the book for? Like who out there stands to gain the most from picking it up?
Yeah, I wrote it for the people who asked for it, and that was my followers. I'm on social media when over time people say, you should write a book. You should write a book. And I thought, well, I guess I'll write a book. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. And slowly I thought I was going to self-publish a book, and then got into traditional publishing, which you know all about. And that's, I mean, it's just a different world that I've learned. I feel like I just went through a roller coaster ride. And I wrote it for the people that are constantly looking how they're going to have that next conversation with that so-and-so. Like they've had plenty of conversations with that mother-in-law. They want to know how to handle the next one. And so I offer a framework, a 3-step framework of if they follow this formula, they will have a better conversation every time. It's saying things with control, saying it with confidence, say it to connect. It is a way that I'm trying to impart. Here's my communication framework that you want to start making your own little tidbits of videos on how to communicate that work for you. This is how to do it. Like my hope is that when they read this book, they just don't need me. They can be able to have it for themselves on how they want to communicate. It's teaching them all the things that they were never taught in school. You know, we were taught how to, I mean, we weren't even taught how to do taxes or, I mean, you know what I mean? Yeah. The most important things I feel like in our life, I can tell you everything about Texas history and I can state some really random physics facts and I can't remember calculus, but just being able to have a heart-to-heart with somebody, how to handle a conversation with grace and kindness, even in the face of absolute just oppressiveness, is a skill that you have to learn and be developed.
Wow. Do you, obviously very valuable. Do you see coaching in your future at all? Or is most of your work, via public communication on platforms like social media and books, etc.?
I started a membership for the first time 2 weeks ago. So it's a school of communication, and it is it's been awesome so far, Max. It really has, because I'm able to apply private coaching and have live classes with them more often, and that I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. So I field questions with people that are able to come on and I answer that specific question. There are other people that have that exact topic. They're able to talk with each other in the community. I have an AI that has all of my content, and
that's dope.
Yeah, people use it. I can see people use it every day to answer their own like text messages or emails from people of how I would handle that. Like if you want to say how you would have written that note,
yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's been really fulfilling and a whole lot of fun getting to see that.
Well, how does that work? Does the AI have access to like the manuscript of your book, your social media? Like how does it answer as you?
Everything. Yeah. So anything I've ever done, everything I've ever written, every podcast I've been on, every one of my videos. And so every time I post a video, it automatically uploads. Whoa. And so it's, and I'm able to give it, parameters of this is how you want to be able to respond. I like it being very short and concise rather than giving these long ones. And then also it's, not a large language model like ChatGPT where it kind of hallucinates and pulls things from the internet, which you want to hear. Mine's small language, meaning it's only going to pull exactly what I know. So if you're asking me the square root of 1,000,005, Jefferson's not going to know. And there's ways that I have it to respond that if I don't know the question, it pushes to the email and I'll get the question if it's one I want to answer. So it's fun. It's really, really cool. And I've gotten a lot of amazing reviews on it early out the gate, but I've also made mistakes too. So we're just slowly starting to learn and finagle. But the biggest thing about it is I'm able to help people in real time. And that's just cool because social media, I don't have any connection to them, but here in the membership, Like I'm able to meet them. I get to know their background. I get to know Susan from Kansas City. I'm able to know Noelle from like Anchorage, Alaska, like all over the world. So it's really, really cool to be able to do that. It's a blessing.
That's so dope. Is there a particular demographic that you find that your work resonates more strongly with? I mean, is it like single guys looking for a date? Is it couples?
Yeah. It is. I think I'm about 60% women on my platform, and I have 40% men, and it carries over really to, I'd say probably the biggest occupations are nurses, teachers, therapists, management. And if you look at that, it's because they are in the middle in some sense. A teacher has to report to faculty and deal with parents and students. A nurse has to deal with administration, patients, and faculty. Like there's this blend of having to deal with certain amounts of above you and below you, and that's a lot of communication. Or I get a lot of guys in management that they've just been working at the same company for 20 years, and now they're in their 30s, and now they're not the low man on the totem pole anymore, and now they're in charge of people, and now they have to have people report to them, and God, well, what's am I going to do? And now for the first time, they're thinking, I need to change how I communicate. And now they're wanting to invest in their communication, to change, to be a better manager, to increase in their job. So they realize that now communication is an asset that they need, that they never had to deal with before. And that's what I see a lot of. What's crazy is just all over the world, it's just all over the place. Like one of my top demographics is like Sydney and Melbourne, like in Australia. Huge. I've never been. I've never been out of the U.S. Like, so seeing that is really cool. And the occupations, you can just tell these are people that are talking to a lot of people and have a lot of stress on them.
Yeah, I mean, and those are, you've listed off some really important professions. I mean, teachers, nurses.
Yeah, they're people that craft our communities. I mean, they craft humans. That's what teaches, who we are and who we want to be. Even with therapists, a lot of the time they ask if they can help use some of my techniques to teach, their patients, and that's a huge honor. Every day, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So it's cool to be able to affect real change, and it started in my car with my phone.
I love it, dude. Well, Jefferson, thanks for coming out, man.
Yeah,
Your work
thanks for having me.
Work is so important. You're a really nice guy too.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah, likewise.
I hope you didn't see my red red Mustang and parked out front. Sorry, I'll move that.
So funny. That was a true story.
Yeah.
True story.
Hey, it happens.
It happens. We'll see how that unfolds. One last question for you before we get to that.
Yeah.
Where can people pre-order your book, and where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so if you go to jeffersonfisher.com/book, you'll have the links there for all the retailers. I just recorded the audiobook last week. So if you like this voice, I'll be reading the book. And social media is just Jefferson Fisher.
Love it, brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. What does living a genius life mean to you?
It means living a life that is one that brings in light rather than one that encourages dark. So if you can continue to always be a light in the world, it is not one of just your genius of intelligence, but the genius of where you originate and what your legacy is.
Amen. Well, keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. Good to meet you.
Same. Thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with friends and loved ones that you think may benefit from it. I mean, honestly, who wouldn't, right? And pick up the next conversation by my boy Jefferson Fisher. And that's it. I'll catch you on the next episode. Peace. Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.